Do you feel like a stranger on your island?
Well, I live in the most diverse city in the UK, London.
We're in it now.
And I don't feel like a stranger.
No.
I feel like I'm in a really rich,
Vibrant,
multicultural society.
In London, I live in...
But am I out of touch with people who this phrase is going to chime with? Because I don't really understand.
She's clearly not saying what she feels, but rather what she feels she has to say, given, look at this, Susanna Reid had previously moaned about her mugging ordeal. No wonder nothing bloody ever changes. The UK diversity melting pot open border strategy has been an utter disaster. We all know it. Any sane human being living in our once great nation knows it. And unless you're in some type of ivory tower, you can see it every day. Enoch Powell may have used some ungraceful language 60 years ago, but the man was right. 2/3 of Brits knew it back then, yet they were ignored at the time. Indeed, anyone who has questioned mass uncontrolled immigration to the tune of over 1 million a year, let alone the illegal invasion of our country's southern border, letting in rapists, murderers, and terrorists who hate us, anyone who's done that has been derided as a racist, shunned from the discussion, and ultimately ignored. So what happened when Slippery Starmer, even though, and I really should stress this, even though he doesn't believe a word of what he said and there are more holes in the Prime Minister's plan than Swiss cheese, but look at what happened when he started using Enoch Powell's language.
Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
They found themselves made strangers in their own country.
So you can see there, quite clearly, that line in Starmer's speech was based on Enoch Powell's 1968 Rivers of Blood address. And as a result of that, rather than actually consider the huge damage that mass uncontrolled immigration is doing to destroy our country every single day, instead of that, what has ensued is total legacy media meltdown. Susanna Reid of Good Morning Britain led the charge of the media lovies who have no idea what their viewers are having to live through on a daily basis.
Do you feel like a stranger on your island?
Well, I live in the most diverse city in the UK, London.
We're in it now.
And I don't feel like a stranger.
No.
I feel like I'm in a really rich,
Vibrant,
multicultural society.
In London, I live in...
But am I out of touch with people who this phrase is going to chime with? Because I don't really understand.
Now, that tone-deaf response provoked outrage. So much so, actually, that I decided to respond to my former colleague because I was outraged. I wrote, "Dear Susanna Reid, yes, you are horribly out of touch. It stuns me that you cannot see the destruction of London. My partner's sister arrived from Scotland last week and was mugged within 1 minute of leaving the tube station. Stop the platitudes, wake up and serve your audience." And then one of the Outspoken audience, oh my God, you guys are good, actually pointed out that she's clearly not saying what she feels, but rather what she feels she has to say, given, look at this, Susanna Reid had previously moaned about her mugging ordeal. And Kevin Maguire, her champagne socialist colleague, was sitting there saying most people like the change when talking about the fast warp speed revision of our demography. That is sick. And by the way, I do note Maguire spends time in a nice seaside apartment in Whitley Bay, an area in the northeast that isn't plagued by immigration, surprise, surprise. Oh, and Susanna lives in Belém, one of the least diverse parts of London. Then there's Ian Dale on the Labour Broadcasting Company, the worst sort of conservative wet who actually believed that he should become a Tory MP.
I can't believe what I heard. It was a speech that, frankly, Nigel Farage could have given. It's a speech Suella Braverman could have given. It's a speech Robert Jenrick could have given. I could not believe I was listening to a Labour Prime Minister, making such what I thought were incendiary comments about immigration. Not once did he really mention any benefits from migration. And in one speech, to me, he lost all of the credit that he's built up for his handling of foreign policy. And then he starts talking about an island of strangers, therefore undermining all the careful community cohesion and good relations between our various communities that have built up over the past decades. In one stroke, he's managed to do that. I think it's an absolute disgrace.
How can that man call himself a conservative? I am so glad that man didn't end up in public office. Now, Sly News have again been plain activists rather than journalists. Watch.
I think there are certain places in this country where people are not living side by side, where we are a very divided, segregated society. If you look at the centre of Bradford, for example, 50% of people were not born in the UK. If you look at the centre of Luton, almost 50% of people only arrived in the UK in the last 10 years. If you look at parts of Dagenham, the white British population has reduced by 50% in the last 25 years.
Is that a problem?
So I think, well, the pace of change is immense, and people are sick of that. People want to see mass migration ended. They want to return to the levels of immigration that we have enjoyed as a country.
Why is it a problem if the percentage of white people has fallen or risen?
Because you can't successfully integrate people at this speed into our country.
But why does the colour of their skin matter?
It's not about the colour of someone's skin. It's about whether or not someone has just arrived in our country. And if you have places...
But that is a different point,
If you have places...
That is a different point.
If you have places like the centre of Bradford, where half the population has only just arrived in our country, how can you expect those people to know our history, our heritage, our norms, our traditions, to be well integrated? If you see profound change in a community like Dagenham, where within 25 years... the people living in the community has changed almost beyond recognition. Understandably, some people who live there will feel that the place that they knew no longer exists. And that is why people are so frustrated and angry at the decisions that politicians have made in recent years, why we have to take action.
I mean, Robert Jenrick put it perfectly there, but Sly News will never understand. And of course, James O'Brien, the lowest of the low, now finally starting to turn on his beloved two-tier Keir and trying to get his BFF, London's failed Mayor Sadiq Khan, to join the condemnation.
Messenger chose to use those phrases, and he's your mate, Keir Starmer.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you listen to the Prime Minister's speech, he also talked about diversity being a strength.
But I'm not asking you, respectfully, I'm not asking you about those bits. I'm asking you how you feel about these bits, specifically. Squalid chapter. He's talking about your parents. And an island of strangers. He's talking about you.
I think from the passage in the speech you're referring to is the promises made by Brexiteers to, inverted commas, take back control. The highest numbers of net migration have been in the most recent years, 900,000, 700,000, 600,000. I think, and you'll correct me, that's what he's referring to. What he was not referring to, because I know how rich his constituency is in relation to the contribution made by migrants, is the contribution we make to this multicultural capital city and country. How do you feel
to hear a Labour Prime Minister talking about a squalid, that word squalid chapter, not an unacceptable chapter or an unreasonable or an unsustainable chapter, a squalid chapter and an island of strangers?
Well, those aren't words that I'd use.
So he finally got there. But of course, if any listener, if any of the people paying his wages actually try to tell James O'Brien the reality of their lived experience, a concept I thought the left embraced, they are immediately shut down.
Large parts of the country and large parts of towns and cities up and down this country have a large influx of people from an area of the world where they don't necessarily, one, understand culture of the UK. I don't know if you could name what the culture of the UK is, but
why don't you?
Can't. Because I'm making a point, buddy, which...
Well, I know, buddy, but what is the culture of the UK that you don't feel people are properly absorbing?
James, I'll be honest. What you're doing is you're asking me a question without listening to the question that you already asked.
No, you've just said that they're not properly observing the culture of the UK, and you said you may not know what it is, so I asked you to clarify for me.
I said they may not understand it.
Yeah, so what is it?
What question do you want answering? The questions that you posed at the beginning of the hour?
No, the question that you've prompted by the quality of your contribution has posed the question of what this culture of the UK is that you're talking about. We can't go on with the conversation until we've nailed down what it is.
How's that, though, James? If you're asking a question
what is?
about
Why can't you tell me what it is?
what-
You're criticising people who don't know what the culture of the UK is, so you must be able to tell me.
This is mad. When have I criticised that? Well, I was literally making a round point, of which that was one of them. But
So what is the culture of the UK?
The culture of the UK is probably a lot of different things, James. That if you let me carry on the answer to the question you actually posed, opposed to the question that you
So
want
you can't
to
tell
pose now.
me. You crack on, answer whatever question you want.
Look, I can't be asked, buddy. Have a good day.
That went well, didn't it, buddy? Culture of the UK. They don't absorb the culture of the... What is it? Absolutely no idea. But I'm absolutely furious with the people that can't answer that question. Oh, whoops. I'm one of them.
To be honest, everyone should deal with James O'Brien just like that. I can't be asked. None of us can be asked with that rubbish anymore. Because, of course, the political class are such a problem. And they're proving they're a problem again. Because they are horrified that Slippery Starmer is betraying their decades-long decision to go with a narrative that shrouds the truth. A woman elected as a Labour MP, currently suspended, Zara Sultana, groaned, "The Prime Minister imitating Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech is sickening. That speech fueled decades of racism and division. Echoing it today is a disgrace. It adds to anti-migrant rhetoric that puts lives at risk. Shame on you, Starmer." Well, I would argue that the thing that's putting lives at risk is allowing murderers, rapists, terrorists into the United Kingdom in an invasion of our southern border without knowing who the hell these people are. Actual Labour MP Urbana Bergam wrote, "Suggesting that the UK risks becoming an island of strangers due to immigration is a leaf out of the far right's playbook. We know where it leads, and we will keep standing up against the scaremongering of migrants and the pandering to racism by the political and media class." Okay, so let me just think about what she's saying there. 75% of the country, far right. That's the case, fine, but you're slurring us all. That crazy lefty on X, though, Super Tansky, has given us all a little bit of joy, though, by claiming Starmer's speech will cause her to emigrate, writing, "I don't want to live in the UK anymore because after one term with this bullshit, you're going to hand it to Reform or just be like all the other far-right pricks. So I'm already trying to see if I could live in France. You're absolute effing idiots." That prompted Nick Dixon to post, "It's working already." Then you've got the anti-white ex-Scottish First Minister, Humza Useless, who was, by the way, the leader of a 96% white country, who's also gone totally ballistic. But first, I'm very excited about today. Brand new sponsor. I have wanted to talk to you about this one for such a long time because, oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. If you're anything like me, you have spent so much time trying to find the perfect skincare treatments for your face, only to realize you've been neglecting the skin on your neck. And as I've got older, that's a massive oversight, let me tell you, because the neck is on display all the time, yet so many people, especially women, treat it as an afterthought in their routine. But so many women in the Outspoken audience will know that the skin on your neck is actually thinner, more delicate, and less oily than face skin, which means it requires specialist care. And that's why I was completely blown away when I received my Go Pure Titan and Lift Neck Cream. It's a product which is transforming the necks of women and some men all across the globe. It is such a gorgeous product. I saw a noticeable difference actually within weeks, and I know it can become a game changer for you too. Outspoken viewers and listeners get 25% off GoPure using the code Dan at checkout. So just head to gopurebeauty.com/Dan, use the code Dan, and you're all set. But let me tell you more about GoPure's proprietary firming complex, because it is designed to visibly firm and smooth skin on the neck and chest in as little as 4 to 8 weeks. In a consumer study, 100% of users, that's right, 100% of users said the skin looked more supple, 97% noticed a firmer appearance. Indeed, GoPure's full line of science-backed skin and body care have delivered for over 100,000 real women with real results. It is dermatologist recommended and cruelty-free. Plus, with over 1 million jars sold, this beauty secret, well, it's no longer a secret, folks. So tighten, lift, and restore elasticity in your neck, because your skincare routine shouldn't stop at your jawline. And for a limited time, Outspoken viewers and listeners get 25% off GoPure using the code Dan at checkout. Just head to gopurebeauty.com/Dan, use the code Dan, and you're all set. And after you buy, do us a favor. When they ask you where you heard about GoPure, tell them it was after watching Outspoken. You will not regret it. But now, back to the show.
Keir Starmer is right. Look at the state of those immigrants. Coming to this country, creating jobs, working in our hospitals, taking care of our elderly, winning Olympic gold medals for Britain, even winning Strictly Come Dancing. Honestly, who do they think they are? Marks & Spencer, Tesco, New Look, Deliveroo, the biggest names on the high street in tech that we use every day, founded by immigrants and the children of immigrants. Honestly, what would Britain do without immigrants? Well, for one, probably not be able to see a doctor, given over a third of doctors working in NHS England are of non-British nationality. Immigrants also contribute a net £6 billion to the UK economy every year. And 1 in 7 businesses in Britain is reportedly started by an immigrant. That's not draining Britain, that's driving Britain. Blaming migrants is the easy, populist thing to do.
Go rot, useless. Jeremy Corbyn took his anti-reform grievances to Parliament.
I'm happy to give way.
She's most generous with her time, but she will be aware that today over 600 illegal migrants have entered this country. They could get up to all sorts of mischief, commit crimes and maybe even acts of terrorism. So does she agree with me that these young men crossing the Channel should be immediately detained and deported along with the member for Islington?
Minister. Well, I certainly hope that that kind of comment might be a joke, but I actually wonder whether that kind of arbitrary treatment of people who are in this country, if we came out of the ECHR as he wants, would become the norm for reform. We are a law-abiding government. The Right Honourable Member for Islington has a complete right to his opinions and a complete right to express them from whatever side of the House that he sits. And I've personally worked with him and have a great deal of respect for him. So I'm quite shocked that the Honourable Gentleman thinks that that's an appropriate thing to say in this place. Now, at committee stage...
Of course, Nigel Farage, who once asked Enoch Powell to endorse him as a UKIP candidate in the 90s, is attempting to play both sides here. Watch this reporting from Newsnight.
Concerns amongst some in the Labour Party that the Prime Minister was echoing the language of Enoch Powell in his notorious Rivers of Blood speech in 1968. And it's interesting, I caught up a few hours ago with Nigel Farage, and, you know, it's not rocket science that some of that speech was aimed at answering the threat from Reform UK in the local elections. And Nigel Farage thinks it was a big mistake, he says, for the Prime Minister to echo the language of Enoch Powell. He talks about how it was a strategic mistake, and he told me the use of that language was not in Keir Starmer's interest. It's a catastrophic mistake that will divide the left for years to come. So what was Starmer saying? What was Powell saying? So the Prime Minister was saying, I welcome immigration, but we need fair rules. And he says in that clip that you played at the top, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate this, These rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. Similar language, different context from Enoch Powell. He was talking about how immigrants coming to this country have enjoyed privileges and opportunities different to the experience of the existing population. And then he said this: for reasons which they could not comprehend and in pursuance of a decision by default on which they were never consulted, they found themselves made strangers in their own country. So Keir Starmer was saying it's about rules. Enoch Powell was saying it's the implication of having migrants to this country. Obviously important to say that Nigel Farage very much in his interest to drive a wedge between Labour and the parties to its left.
Well, yeah, you could argue that. But there does seem to be little doubt Starmer purposefully invoked Enoch Powell for PR purposes, as Downing Street has actually stood by the comments today.
Baroness Foster, would Keir Starmer have known the similarities between the language that he used in his speech today and the phrase used by Enoch Powell all those years ago?
Somebody did in Downing Street. I'm convinced of it. And Island of Strangers, the Island of Strangers is a very particular form of word. It's almost a term of art. So where did it come from, and who was the person that said this should go into the speech?
Now, of course, some on the right are angry about the hypocrisy, and I do understand that. Like Maya Tusi wrote, Starmer's Enoch Powell moment, so it's okay when the left say it. But other shrewd voices can see this as an Overton window shifting moment, which makes the prospect of mass deportations under a right-wing government much more likely. Like Douglas Carswell, who wrote, the British state is desperately worried about losing control. Their mass immigration imprisoned dissident policy has triggered a full insurgency. Keep demanding mass deportation. And Stephen Edgington, one of the only sound people who remain at GB News, writing, Starmer is echoing Enoch Powell. The Tories are implicitly supporting mass deportations to attack Nigel Farage. Now, of course, I have not forgotten Starmer is all talk. Neither has the public. I mean, just think about this. Our border farce is chronic, including yesterday. Our train stations still have signs not in our native language, prompting Rupert Lowe to directly ask the Prime Minister, does Keir Starmer agree with me that this London station name should be in English and English only? And of course, when you look at the polls, they show quite clearly by a soar-away margin that the public believes that Reform UK is best positioned to deal with immigration. And of course, I will remind you all as well, before anyone is sucked into Starmer's spin, that there was a critical 9 seconds during the press conference yesterday where he confirmed that he will not leave the ECHR and will not ignore human rights laws.
Does going further mean disentangling ourselves from the ECHR and disapplying human rights laws in immigration cases?
No.
So given that, it is no wonder the so-called online right in the US finds the debate we are having pathetic given the trouble we're in. Like the highly influential cat turd on X that wrote, you risk becoming an island of strangers? You already are. Thanks to you, he's referring to Starmer, and leftists like you, it's too late. It's over. Done. But I'm not giving up the fight yet. Because while we're breathing, there is a reason to fight, not by a long shot. And nor should you. Now, let me bring in Dr Philip Kiszely, the cultural historian, academic author, political commentator, a senior fellow at the New Culture Forum. Philip, so wonderful to have you back on Outspoken. What's it like for you seeing this mainstream media meltdown over the fact that Starmer quite clearly echoed Enoch Powell's comments, even if his solution is to do very little?
First of all, Dan, it's great to see you again. It's lovely to be back on the show. Yeah, it's just, I'm just watching it aghast and thinking, what country do they live in? What are they looking at when they walk down the street, the city streets of our country? What are they? Do they have their eyes closed? Do they have their ears closed? Are their senses all? I'm just looking at some of the stats that people were suggesting there, and actually the truth is this. I've written them down. By the time low-skilled immigrants get to the age of 66, retirement age, they cost the taxpayer £150,000. So each low-skilled immigrant costs the taxpayer £150,000. If they live to be 80 years old, they cost the taxpayer £500,000. Okay. Years ago, when people like me and people like you used to say, look, we have a problem with mass immigration, okay, since the 1960s, actually since 1997, with huge amounts of people pouring into our porous borders, we have a real real problem. It's about culture. It's about society. It's also about politics. Okay, don't forget, we have a Gaza coalition in Parliament at the moment, one of whom is advocating marriage. Okay?
And there'll be a hell of a lot more of them very soon.
And there'll be a hell of a lot more of them very soon, okay? We have cities in which some areas of our cities, and I'm in a northern city at the moment, just a few miles away, there is negotiated policing, okay? Because that area of the city, Batley, Dewsbury, places like that, are fairly dangerous places to be if you are of a particular persuasion, okay? All of these things are happening. I go down to London all the time. I don't live in London, but I work in London quite a lot. I'm often quite scared on the streets, actually, because there's a sense of intimidation and menace. New Culture Forum has just made a documentary film in our Heresies series about sex crimes against women, particularly in London, by Alex Phillips. Okay, she presented it, and the stats are out, and it's immigrants, it's illegal immigrants, it's legal immigrants, it's people from places like Afghanistan. They are way off the scale. They're represented hugely in terms of sex crimes. We've got rape gangs in this country, okay? We're not having a national inquiry, we're not having local inquiries. All of these things are happening, and yet we have a media class, and I could go on and on and on, Dan, okay? But we have a media class that is kind of going like this, no, 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 and just kind of ignoring it all and saying, well, I live in London, you know, one of the poshest parts of London, which is a kind of monoculture, and I can't see it, you know, and we've got Jeremy Corbyn is saying, look what immigrants do for our country. There's a difference between sensible immigration that we used to have probably in the 1950s, okay, and mass immigration, which is absolutely and utterly devastating to our culture.
Totally. But I mean, Susanna Reid clearly isn't telling the truth. Is she, Philip?
No.
She feels like she has to go on and repeat all the platitudes and say, oh, well, all I do is look around London and see this diverse, multicultural society, forgetting that she's admitted to us that she was mugged. And let's be honest, Philip, in the past, before mass immigration, uncontrolled and illegal immigration destroyed London, the capital city, you could walk around quite comfortably without the concern of being mugged.
Well, I just talked about Manchester. Manchester's quite a similar city to London, actually. I tweeted about Manchester a few weeks ago and it went viral. And I was walking through the city. It was a bank holiday Monday. There were gangs of Asian lads in black tracksuits with their faces masked. There was a woman defecating in the doorway.
Oh my God.
Homeless drunks lurching around. This is a city that I grew up in and that I loved and that I was part of. I was part of the culture. I was part of the Manchester music scene in the 80s and 90s, all of that kind of stuff. Now it's a terrifying place because it is a place of strangers. You know, it's mass immigration has absolutely devastated Manchester. Okay, the streets, there's an encampment of tents in the middle of Manchester where immigrants are there before they get housed and all the rest of it. So that city is devastated. As I said, it's just happening in London. Yes, of course she's lying. But this is the thing. We know she's lying. She knows she's lying. Everybody knows she's lying. But it's the same thing about all of this stuff, isn't it? If you complain quite reasonably about mass immigration, 1.2 million people coming into the country every year, the risk to women, the risk to children, all of those kinds of things. For years and years and years, you were just called racist. You were closed down, even though you knew that they didn't think you were racist, okay? But the problem is, for our elitist establishment, if they say for 1 minute, oh, actually, we got it wrong, and you're right, then they are in real trouble, because the whole of the last 30 years, all of the ethos, all of the philosophy has been wrong. All of that liberal philosophy has been wrong, okay? And then they have to say, well, it's our fault and there are consequences to our actions, okay? We opened the borders. We let all of these people in. We championed multiculturalism. We championed interculturalism. None of it's happened. We just have a Babel, a balkanized society. And what they have to do then is account for that. They have to say, well, basically, they have to say sorry and they have to face the consequences. Now, of course, they won't do that, so they'll just lie to us. And that absolute barefaced lying is making people very, very angry indeed.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.